Good afternoon, BC Spirits. This is BC Spirits episode number 5, and I've been wrangled back up into Solomon's office. Usually I only come up here when I've done something bad downstairs. We're doing vermouth today because he is a vermouth head, just as he was an absinthe head. If there's an obscure spirit out there, chances are Solomon knows more than the next guy about it. Is that about right?
I don't know about that, but thanks for having me back again to drink with you.
Solomon likes me better when I drink. So,
you get prettier.
I do get prettier. So today, BC Vermouths have become, as you can see, we have 7 in front of us. 2 exclusives that will be the first time that you see these out on the market. They're just about to get released, or I think this one's getting released on Sunday. Well, Sunday this week. You'll be seeing this Wednesday next week, so that'll be Sunday just gone. And then this little guy just here, as you can see, is just a little dinky little bottle. It's still settling as well. This one's from a brand new company out of Esquimalt. Vic West, and I'm looking forward to tasting that one because I haven't tried any of these. I don't try if I got anything new, I never try to taste them before filming, so then I'm completely surprised. Because literally while you were out, I was like, I'm gonna taste the new ones, so I'm not surprised when I taste them the first time.
Well, that's no fun.
And I'm like, you know what? That's not what I do.
TV.
Well, I did the birch liqueur in the liqueurs episode from Uputers.
Yeah,
birch liqueur. And I don't like maple or anything like that, but that birch liqueur was on point. And it's I opened it for the first time, I cracked it, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is awesome!" So, do you want to do your little history spiel?
Sure.
Yeah,
we'll do a little bit. So, vermouth is a style of aromatized wine. So it's wine with herbs in it. Now, the name comes a little bit about the history. So, some of the oldest examples of wine have been herbed wine, so it's a really, really old history to it, and some of the herbs that have been in vermouth were being used in wine, back in the time of Hippocrates, like the first doctor. So Hippocratic wine was essentially a vermouth, and the word vermouth comes from the German word vermut, which is wormwood. So we're back at wormwood again,
which I find very odd because Germany is not famous for vermouth.
No, it's not famous for vermouth, but
is it around that time? I remember seeing a map when I was doing bitters, and the House of Savoy and all that sort of thing. That whole area, Germany, Italy, France, sort of was always in this constant state of flux, and country borders changing, and kingdoms changing,
and that's very true. So and the border between Germany and Italy and northern Italy has always been a fairly fluid one, and there's very Germanic looking and even speaking Italian and stuff too. So that's the language was not that settled, and certainly vermouth as we know it really got its big start in northern Italy. Yeah. And the key factor of it is it's always made from white wine. Even your red vermouth is still made with white wine as a base, and there's always herbs in it. And the key herb is wormwood. It can't really be a true vermouth unless it has wormwood in it. And generally, Roman wormwood is the go-to, but they'll use some other ones.
And we talked about wormwood in the absinthe episode, and that one was a big one for absinthe, obviously, grand wormwood. And we talked about the spectrograph and Ted Bro, and how there was a lot of vermouths on the market, especially Campana, which is the original vermouth. Having more thujon, or the wormwood derivative hallucinogen, than absinthe. A lot of absinthes do.
Yeah, and every household in northern Italy would have its own version of this, right? And it'd be their cure-all and their thing. It'd be the health tonic that they would have. So it was almost more medicine at the time. And sweet vermouth was the big one that got put out there. And the reason why sweet vermouth is sweet is it's got a little bit of sugar added, usually caramelized sugar, which is why it looks red and dark. It's not red wine, despite what people might think or say. It's all white wine. But sweet vermouth is often redder in color from the caramel coloring.
Yeah.
And then in France, a dry style got popular with brands like Dolan and Noli Prat.
And Dolan is the last AOC for vermouth in the world.
Is it?
Yeah. I do believe that Marseille and Noli Prat are trying to get their AOC back as well.
Yeah. And hopefully they can start sending the good stuff back to Canada again, too. So yeah, and there's different ways of doing it. Some vermouths are barrel aged. Some are like the real version of Nolly Pratt that we once had in Canada was left outside to barrel age for a year before you
with sprinklers over it and the whole shebang. I've seen photos of Francesco Lafreni posted a photo of Nolly Pratt getting like sprinkled. All the barrels are getting sprinkled with water to keep them hydrated.
Yeah, and the number one thing with vermouth is you have to treat it like a white wine. So. If and some people are like, oh, vermouth is disgusting, I don't want it.
Well, that's where we're fast forwards through this. I would say the 60s and 70s, and the 80s is where like that horrible that anti-vermouth dry martini sort of came about.
Oh, okay. Well, to rewind, then you got to go back to Prohibition even a little bit there too, right? Because during Prohibition, like vermouth got changed differently because for one, it was incredibly difficult to get actual vermouth. The gin was garbage. That people were drinking, and certainly if you had vermouth, it was completely off. And I always think it's like putting milk in your coffee. If you have fresh milk, you can put a lot in your coffee. Not that I drink milk in my coffee, but if you have fresh milk, you can put a lot of milk in your coffee, and it will change the coffee, but it won't become. It's not that intense. But if you have sour milk and you put 2 drops in your coffee, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So if you have super oxidized off vermouth that's been sitting open on your bar forever, and you put 2 drops in your martini, it's why it's such a strong flavor is because it's horribly oxidized and off.
I remember when I did an event. I won't say which hotel I was at. I did an event and they brought me a bowl of Nolly Pratt. Yeah. I think I had a dry martini or a regular martini on the menu. Brought me Nolly Pratt and it was open. And I was like, okay, cool. This must just come from the bar.
Yeah.
And I poured the first batch and it was like like dirty copper brown.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't use this.
Yeah, this is just wrong.
And it was off. And I've done a lot of consulting jobs where there's back vintage bottles, and I know they're back vintage because they don't have a barcode on them. I know that when Martini changed all their packaging up because there's a pretty good chronological order of that.
Yeah.
And I've grabbed a bottle off, it's open, half full, and I'm like, I don't even want to taste this or smell this at all because it has just gone so far past horrible.
When I was my very start in the bar world is when I was realizing I needed to taste everything. I tasted vermouth and I thought it was an olive liqueur.
You got to listen to podcast number 1 on the Post Shift podcast.
Yeah, I talked about that.
You talked about the olive liqueur.
What's the callback to our earlier work?
But I think that's where the big issue is that people don't treat it properly. And I still see bars putting it on the back bar even to this day with all the information that's out there. So treat it like wine. Keep it in your fridge. Understand that even though it's fortified with a high test alcohol, there is always a point of oxidization because it is wine based. Yes. And so utilize that.
And the people who were drinking like with just looking in the direction of France or shining lights are just raging alcoholics who want an excuse to drink gin and make it look classy, right? So I mean, Winston Churchill was doing all this stuff because he just wanted a big glass of gin and he didn't want to dilute it down with lower proof vermouth.
Yeah, because
that would get in the way of the alcohol. So, and it was classy to have a martini and not so classy to just drink a big glass of gin. So I think that's my interpretation, at least.
I agree on that one. Yeah. And I think with the BC vermouths that are coming out, the ones we're going to taste today, I think the thing is if you're an at-home bartender or someone who works behind a bar and listening, I think you got to treat these vermouths the same way you treat everything from BC, is that they're not going to align with anything else on the market. Like Lillet is a very specific style of fortified wine or aromatized wine. Nolly Pratt is a very particular. They're not interchangeable with, say, an Italian dry. So why would you treat the same? Like I dislike when people go, "Well, this is not like Nolly Pratt." I'm like, of course it's not like Nolly Pratt. It's not from Marseille. Yeah. It's from Zanich. For crying out loud! Like let's keep like some sort of like example. So we're gonna start. I've sort of set this up. I think dry to sweet.
Okay, that's a good way to go. Yeah.
So we have 3 vermouths that you haven't seen before. The Marrow, which absolutely has an epic label. I think the labeling is packaging is fantastic. The guys at Marrow have told me this is much more of a Catalanian style Spanish vermouth, which is completely weird for me to think that even though Spanish vermouth's only been in BC for like maybe 12 months, there's someone in BC making a Spanish style vermouth.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We've got one that I haven't tried before is the barrel aged Bittersweet from Odd Society. Which is I'm really looking forward to. And then this little one that's not even in a package thing. I'm hoping they change their packaging. I'm sure they will. But Esquimalt Wine Company, they're doing a sweet vermouth. So this is going to be like a typical sweet vermouth. So let's get started on one of the ones that are pretty brand new on the market. Actually, it's been around for about 12 months. I actually got turned on this. Funnily enough, I've always been a big supporter of Ampersand. It's Ampersand and Rathjan Cellars dry vermouth. They're Imperative. I'm going to let Sol get started on this one. I've always been a big fan of the Ampersand stuff. They've always made quality. Their gin, vodka, their Nocino, awesome. So I was very surprised when Brant over at Veneto threw me up on this one. They use Ortega and... I can never pronounce that one. Can you do that one?
No.
Yeah.
Or
Roxio.
I'm sorry, wine people.
I really am sorry. But Ortega is definitely an island grape. It's been grown here specifically for the island. So it's a really good brand. They use roasted dandelion root, cardamom, marjoram, orange peel, light and complex. I'm going to say that this one for me is definitely... It leans much more Lillet style.
Well, I'll disagree because I think it's got enough of the bitterness in it. Right, Lillet is not a bitter style. True. Right, it's technically a quinine base. So Lillet is not vermouth because its bittering agent instead of wormwood is quinine. Yeah. Same thing as in tonic water. It's the French equivalent of
no, I agree. On the palate, it does change. Yeah. On the nose, it's definitely got that like nice little light sweetness.
Well, it's very floral. The dandelion and stuff like that is really beautiful, and it's what I really love this one for is that, like a good vermouth, this makes a wonderful martini, and I can totally drink this on its own too. And if you're not drinking vermouth on its own, you're missing out.
And I think this is our house. This is our house pour. This is our house dry vermouth at Pagliacci's.
Yeah.
So we tasted it with vodka martinis, gin martinis, and a few other things. And so we go through a fair chunk of this. So get a bottle. Oh yeah, that rooty dryness in the finish now.
Yeah.
It's just going for days. Yeah. That's really tasty.
And this can and it's not an overwhelming. There's a lot of herbs going on there, but you can feel in your mouth at least how the juniper would pair well with this. That would add a kind of a side note to the middle intensity of the juniper of a good gin.
And I do like the fact that it's a floral dryness, not just a chewing on roots sort of dryness.
No, yeah, there's the floral. Yeah. The dandelion works really well in vermouth. Yeah.
So we've got two here. I'll show you these ones. So we've got two here from DeVine. One is the classic Bianco vermouth. So I believe this is trying to go for your more Italian Bianco style.
Bianco is a sweetened white style.
Color is fantastic. The packaging is great. The great thing with DeVine is that Ken Winchester is a bit of a scholar when it comes to spirit development. So he really researches a lot of different styles and brands. I'm a big fan of Bianco, especially Bianco. Like I prefer Bianco when I'm drinking it straight. If I'm having Bianco as like a straight drink, I prefer Bianco because I'm a big fan of Martini Bianco.
Ooh. And this is a very dry Bianco. So I get why they're calling it Bianco because it's not bone dry, like a dry vermouth should be. It's got maybe a little bit of residual sugar into it, but very little. But it's not as bitter as full dry vermouth. So not.
It's sort of sitting right between.
It's sort of sitting right between. Yeah. Not that you couldn't make a martini with this.
No.
But it wouldn't to me be a classic martini that you'd be making with this. It would be which Bianco vermouth is not really the classic dry.
And I think if you did the classic martini style with this, you'd be looking for like a super dry orange bitters.
Yeah,
like a super dry orange bitters.
Yeah, you could do a lot of interesting gin drinks with this.
I think it would be really good to try in the with a mezcal Negroni, mezcal with Zamaro, and
I was thinking like a white Negroni even. Too.
Yeah, white Negroni would be perfect for it too.
Yeah,
I always find white Negronis can be a little bit too sweet, but this would like dry that off a little bit.
Yeah, because it's not super sweet. Yeah.
So the second one is the Modena, which I think they put this one out first. So I'm thinking that this is gonna like ramp up a little bit darker. I'm gonna pour some of this myself. I'm not sure where this one sits.
Yeah.
Bittersweet, complex, and French cocktails everywhere. This is a modern take on the original Turin vermouth. Okay? So Turin vermouth, we're talking about Campano Antica, Punta Mess, that sort of thing. It's definitely not dark at all.
It's actually quite dry. So like you couldn't really ever call this a sweet vermouth.
But again, my thing like what you said, like every Italian household has their own style of aromatized wine. I think that's where the thing comes in, is like when you try and pigeonhole style from BC into like a mainstream style, I think you miss out on a whole myriad of different vermouths that you would get town to town, because each town would use a different grape. Each town would have a different like herb base, and each town would be proud of that one. It would be sold at the local pub, and people would drink that.
Yeah, the rootiness here is really interesting. It pulls really dry. I think from more of a rooty herb shop kind of tea-like notes. Maybe it's a bit of licorice root or something like that they're using. Do they tell us what they're using?
No.
Please tell us what you're using. It's nice to guess, but it's more fun to know.
See, usually I can go on the website, like I got a ton of information from Marrow and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like I really just want, because for people watching or listening at home, I really want to get down to like the nuts and bolts of how it tastes and what to use it in.
Gentian in here too?
Yeah, it's got that twang.
Yeah.
That twang.
Yeah, it's a fairly bitter thing. It'd be really interesting in a lot of cocktails because it's got a lot of bitters to it, and it almost kind of bridges the gap towards, to kind of like a, I guess why they go with this thing touring, because it's like Punta Mas and something like that. I'm heavier on the bitter, but not heavier. But they didn't go heavier on the sugar content.
Yeah. So, but if you went with the sweeter Marrow, the sweeter Marrow would go really well with this one.
Yeah, I'd be pushed more to this one as this is really a great mixing one. Maybe a little bit less sour drinking on its own, because I think you need something to create the balance with it.
But if you did like an Americano twist,
twist, full on,
like that, and maybe Ramazzotti, Montenegro, sort of something in that like slightly sweeter sort of area.
You know what would be really cool? Even just doing a dry Manhattan that wasn't a dry Manhattan with it.
That's cool. The not dry Manhattan.
Yeah, the not dry, because it would be because it kind of would be it
work really well with the rye.
Yeah, it would work really well with the rye and everything.
Yeah, and you get the sweetness from the Abbots or the Angostura there.
Yeah.
Okay, now's the big time. Okay, Marrow. It's out of Summerland. Using grapes from there. The guys from Marrow are from Saskatoon, I believe, and they just started doing this. So they're going to be a vermouthery. So narrow amount of bench grapes. All natural, no artificial sweeteners or caramel syrups were used to make this. Interesting. It has got some original sweetness. Unpasteurized late fall honey and BC sugar was used. Caramelized in small batches. Was caramelized. This is good. Was caramelized by me in small batches by me, my pans, and a stovetop. And yes, it took a long time to do that.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm really excited for this one.
Clearly not filtered.
I'm always excited about new vermouths. But again, like I think the US has seen an explosion of vermouths way more than we have. I remember I did the Society of Wine Educators conference in New Orleans in 2015, and I did a seminar with Jake from Alpers, an importer in Jake Parrott in the US, and I was tasting ones with like beet juice sweetener. Like they use the beet juice as the sweetener, like caramelized beet juice and stuff, and it was out of Brooklyn, I think. And I tasted like all these crazy amount of vermouths just out of the US, and it blew my mind.
Well, that's completely its own thing. This is fascinating. It's really cool. The honey's pretty incredible in it.
The texture's fantastic. But you got all the roots there. You got all the herbs. And I've tasted a few Spanish vermouths as well.
I think there's some chamomile in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like chamomile and vermouth a lot.
I like this a lot.
You know what? It kind of like it's evocative to me of like when I was a kid and I used to get like sleepy time tea with a bunch of honey in it, because it's all of those kind of those beautiful herbs, right, are coming through, like the chamomile and maybe some lemongrass and almost lavender. I think there's probably some lavender here too.
I really love this.
Yeah, and like there's got to be lavender.
You know what? Screw it. I know it's unprofessional. I'm gonna look this up on my.
And we're watching a screen within a screen.
Yeah,
within a screen.
He's got so much Spanish style vermouth, distilled from wine from Summerland grapes, flavored with bay, juniper, local honey, caraway, orange peel, and roasted chicory. Organic sugar. We've got marjoram, wormwood, mugwort, gentian root, valerian root, rose petal, lavender, chamomile, hibiscus, caraway, basil, fresh mint, fresh tarragon, milk root, kola nut, bitter orange, and dried yarrow. The wine base is hard pressed Chard, Pinot Noir, and Gris from Summerland. It's unfiltered and not sulfured. The wine was initially flavored with rose, chamomile, lavender, caraway seed, fresh mint, fresh sage, more wormwood, and gentian. It just goes on. So this is from Sean Dalton from Marrow. Honestly, when you see this at the shelves, I think you need to get some. I think you need to get some.
Very, very drinkable.
It's very drinkable.
I keep on going back for more. Like the honey sweetness in it is really
and just straight
lovely.
around, texture wise, it's awesome. Mm-hmm. So next up, we've got one that's been out on the market. I think actually this may have been the first vermouth released in BC. I think I might be right in saying that. So Odd Society's original Bittersweet. So Bittersweet's another Italian style vermouth. Wonderful color. "25 botanicals, fine BC wine fortified with our malted barley spirit."
I think they're very fair in calling it bittersweet. Mm-hmm. It's a funny dance we just did because we went from certainly much more of a sweet palate.
I wasn't expecting that one to be a sweet.
No, it's quite
I probably should have slid that one down here.
Yeah, no, that's just like this is the bitterness is right forward here. Like you get that wormwood, dry it out bitterness and stuff like that too is there. But then there's a lot of interesting other things going on.
As texturally, it's great. Yeah, the bittersweet, it is balanced perfect.
Yeah, very much.
Texturally, it dries it out.
Yeah, it's got some like Campari notes in it too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it reminds me a lot of like, it's almost like a bit of an Americano waiting to happen. Like, just a bit of soda water with this one would be super refreshing.
Americano in a bottle.
Yeah, there we go. Let's put a bit of soda water in it.
Well, we have soda. We have the technology. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crushable all day long.
Yeah, I wouldn't kick that out of bed for eating cookies.
Yeah, it's important to realize that when you're talking about bitterness, right, that can provide that refreshingness to the palate. Like if you have, the beautiful thing about the bitterness in here is it really keeps you coming back from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you get all that sweet in the front.
Yeah.
Then it dries off the palate, and then you're like, "Ooh, I need more of that.
I need a bit more. Yeah, I want to have another sip."
So now we're going to go for something fun too. We're doing the barrel aged. I don't think they say which barrels that they put these in, but they do a lot of their whiskey barrels, so I'm going to probably assume this is a whiskey barrel finish.
And this is the same vermouth.
This is the same vermouth rested in aged barrels. So I'm curious to see if the barrel added anything to it. As we said before, Nolly Pratt's done in barrels, but they're neutral. They keep getting hydrated, so at the end of the day, they don't add too much flavor to it. It's really just an oxidization, a controlled oxidization.
It added some flavor, that's for sure.
This one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is one of the most intense vermouths I've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wood is insanely... But if you did this in a Boulevardier, someone with bourbon, someone with rye...
Yeah, something with bourbon, and add some sweetness to it.
Spicy rye.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could do a mix. We could do literally, let's do some of the rye from them, the beautiful prospector that they do.
Yeah.
Which is super spicy. Some of this, a little splash of this, a little bit of that. Make your own little vermouth blend. I think it'd be nice.
You could do a really interesting kind of rum-based drink with this too.
Rum would be great too.
Just
with that vanilla tone
with
from
the vanilla sweetness and stuff like that.
Yep.
Play against the intensity of this.
Yeah, that's wow. The oak brings through tobacco, and that sort of thing as well. So I think your bourbons and your ryes are just going to love this vermouth. I don't know if this is out anymore. I got this bottle dropped off, and Carmen and Mo, the reps here in Victoria, were just like, I'm not sure if you can get it anymore, but here's the bottle we have in stock, so...
That works.
Okay. The first true, definition of a class as a sweet vermouth.
All right.
Super nice color. I don't believe this is completely finished up in the way of just formulation. There's a few more formulation things. That droplet just sitting on top.
Yeah. Whoa.
Ooh. solid sweetness.
And then certainly the wormwood's there too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm getting that.
It dries off differently than some of the others. Like it dries off delicately. Like some of them were very like sweet forward, dry finish.
Yeah.
This is, I don't actually mind. This is a sweet vermouth. I thought this was quite good.
Yeah, I think they're probably thinking a little bit more traditional role of sweet vermouth here, which is great, right? Because there's a lot of amazing products here, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to just throw it in a Manhattan and people not notice. Right?
Not as sweet as your Shinzano. I wouldn't say as complex as like Martini Rosso for price if we're talking about the entry level stuff.
Yeah.
So it sits right in the middle. Not too sweet, but still complex.
But yes, more complex, definitely more complex, and I think and driven a little bit more with a bit more bitter of a backbone.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get those entry level ones, and they don't have necessarily the bitterness of this.
Mm-hmm. That's great that we started with this one because this one you get like the Ampersand Imperative with Rathjen cellars would definitely be one that you could sub out for a dry martini, but this one definitely. Check it. Watch out for the Esquimalt Wine Company when they do the full release. I think that one's going to be a good seller.
I think it's going to be behind a lot of bars.
Yeah. I'm hoping price point. Price point's always going to be hard. Wine is expensive. Like base wine is always expensive. Grapes are really expensive. So to wrap it up, I would say the Ampersand Rathjen cellars, definitely look it out, and for the at-home bartenders, sub it in for your gin martinis. The two guys from DeVine's, sub out, but be very careful for the residual sweetness. Like make sure that your cocktail's got enough residual sweetness. The Bianco by itself, fantastic. The Marrow,
Just drink it.
I'm just like, but the great thing is that he has done a Spanish style vermouth, and that's how they drink it.
Yeah,
like, I think that's what he's achieved. And Sean's done a great job for Marrow for that. The Two Odd Societies, the original bad boys of the original OGs of the vermouth industry in BC. I love the Bittersweet, and if you go and get all the same stuff from Odd Society, so they have a gin, they have a vermouth, and they have an Amaro. For fall and winter, it's perfect as a Negroni. We barrel age ones here.
Yeah.
The barrel aged sub out your gins for your bourbons and your ryes for sure. And this little naughty one at the end. Keep an eye out for this one when it fully releases. I'm really stoked about that coming out. I think that's going to be for that and Ampersand being like the epitome of what we can use in cocktails day in, day out.
Yeah,
these ones
more of a straight switch out for the traditional rolls
and go local.
Yeah,
for sure. These bad boys all had their place, but every vermouth has its place.
And it's in my mouth.
And I will always argue that I'm not a massive fan of Campano Antica outside of being by itself one.
Sure, yeah.
Or with like big ballsy bourbons and gins. I think to do a Negroni with Campano Antica, you have to really use like a Navy strength.
It's a knuckle dragger. It's gonna push aside a lot of the things it's playing.
Yeah,
with.
It will beat the shit out of everything. Yeah. So I'm big on like I'm not one size fits all with vermouth, especially. I think all vermouths play with different spirits, different ways. So I think that was a really good tasting. I'm really happy with BC Vermouth, and you should be too. So go out and get some. Keep an eye out on Marrow. Follow them on Instagram. Well, actually follow all these guys on Instagram. DeVine Vineyards, Amp Distilling Co. I think it's just Marrow Vermouth. Great packaging. I think they're going to be putting out a dry in summer. Odd Society Spirits is the Instagram handle. Esquimalt, I think they have one. I think they followed me on BC Spirits the other day. So just look up Esquimalt Wine Company. You should be able to find it. I think they're bringing out 2 or 3 by the end of summer. So that's going to be really cool too. That's with, actually, that's a collaboration. We didn't mention this with Rootside Provisions.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all the guys from Rootside Provisions, which they work with the herbs and everything all the time. So you can tell where that comes from.
Yeah.
So this is another great tasting with you, bud.
Yeah, drink more vermouth on its own, everybody.
Drink more vermouth. If you're in Victoria, go down to Bodega. They always have vermouths open. If you want to try vermouths, they do vermouth flights. If you're in Vancouver, go to Como Taparia. Taparia? Yeah, Taparia. Sean Layton's new spot. I think it's Mount Pleasant that it's in. Go and see them. They've always got tons of vermouth. Their place is like a Spanish tapas bar. Stand up and hardcore like tapas.
We happen to have a few at Pagliacci's too.
And yes, you can come down to Pagliacci's as well and try them as well. I don't want to be shameless plugging people, but
I have no problem being shameless plugging myself. We do a lovely job. We'd love to see you here.
We do. Come on down to Pagliacci's, and I might keep these behind the bar for a little bit longer. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the episodes. These always go way too long when I'm with you, like twice as long as they probably should be. I hope you're enjoying watching. Thank you very much for listening. And I will see you next week when I think I'm going to be doing barrel-aged gins. I'm still tracking down all the barrel-aged gins, but I think that's what I'm going to be doing. So have a good week, everybody.